Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Board
Recording in progress.
for Thursday, the 10th of July in the year 2025.
Okay, want to do the pledge allegiance first, or pledge allegiance first, or should we do the roll
Yeah,
call?
I'll let JP, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Please join with me in reciting our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you, Chair Robbins. This meeting is being conducted as a virtual and in-person meeting. So I will do a roll call of the trustees to confirm attendance. Ms. Ginsburg? Mr. Razzo?
Present.
Ms. Langton? Ms. Fessler?
Here.
Mr. Oakham?
Here.
Mr. Kehoe?
Present.
Mr. Robbins?
Here.
Mr. Harris?
Here.
Mr. Moore?
Here.
Staff participating in the meeting include the following: Deputy CEO Louis Lugo, AEOs JJ Popovich and Laura Guglielmo, Chief Counsel Stephen Rice, Division Managers Kathy Delano, Louis Gittins, Ted Granger, and Tamara Caldwell, Senior Staff Counsels Frank Bullitt and Allison Barrett, and our actual consultant Milliman will be on site today. Trustees, please use your raise your hand option to be placed in the queue. At this time, we ask all meeting participants to mute their mics until you're ready to speak. And now we may proceed with the agenda.
Thank you very much. We are on item number 4, approval of the minutes. I need a motion to approve the June 4th minutes.
So, second.
Are there any changes? Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Ginsburg? Mr. Raza?
Aye.
Ms. Langton? Mr. Ruth? She's not here. Ms. Fessler?
Aye.
Mr. Kehoe?
Aye.
Mr. Oakham?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Stay.
Okay, Mr. Robbins? Oh, Mr.
Yes,
Robbins, okay. Okay, the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. We're on item 5, public comment. There are no requests from the public to address the board. Item 6, executive update. AJ.
Good morning, Chair Robbins, and good morning to the trustees. So each month we take a moment to recognize LACERA staff who have been nominated by their fellow staff members for going above and beyond the call of duty to help members or each other. And this month we recognize Jan Batista, Jay Lee, Laura Orr, and Maisha Coulter. And then our web watcher was Anna Chang. So thank you very much for everything that you do. And with your permission, we'll move on to the member spotlight. So the member spotlight is a way for LACERA to recognize the public servants that care for the constituents of LA County. It's also an opportunity for us to reflect on what we do, why we do, everything that we do to serve members and empower them for a healthy and secure retirement. And so this month, we recognize Alicia E. Lozano, who is a senior secretary at County Council. She is planning to retire in a couple of years. She takes great pride in her work, especially supporting older adults and those that have mental health challenges, which is a very, very important job and a very difficult job. We don't see this very often, but she did have some advice for others. So I'm going to read that. Learn as much as you can and always respect others, which I think is a great piece of advice for all of us to remember. So we thank Ms. Lozano for all of her service and looking forward to her retiring in a couple of years and enjoying her retirement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. CEO report, Louis.
Yes, good morning, trustees. Good morning, Chair Robbins. Just a few highlights from our CEO report. First, happy fiscal year. We ended our fiscal year June 30th. I think this is the 84th, maybe 86th fiscal year for LACERA. Look forward to a great fiscal year this year. With that, a couple of calendar updates. So LACERA Summit, there's going to be a detailed email to all trustees, but our LACERA Summit is scheduled for September 18th. That's an all staff, all trustee, we want to invite all the trustees to attend. And it's at Lake Avenue Church, right across the street, from 9 to noon. So more details will be forthcoming. Look forward to seeing you all, as well as I'm sure our team is looking forward to seeing you as well. BOR strategic plan, we have an update in the OOC, but I just want to highlight a milestone. We've completed over 53% of our respective tasks as it relates to the strategic objectives that we've outlined. So that's incremental improvement, incremental progress on the Board of Retirement strategic plan. So appreciate the efforts of all of our leads and everyone involved in the various objectives that we have underway. So thank you. Safety member elections, candidate filing period ended June 23rd. We expect the County Register Recorder's Office to certify eligible candidates soon. I don't know if we have, maybe.
We haven't heard from them yet, but I will follow
Okay.
up today. We should have heard from them.
We'll follow up and then send an email to trustees on the status of that. Personnel update, we met a milestone. We are now at 15%. For a short while, I think it's going to go up, but we're at 15% vacancy rate overall organizationally. The goal is to get into the single digits, hopefully by the end of the fiscal year, at least over the next 6 to 12 months. But just want to thank all of the division managers, the hiring managers, and obviously our HR team for making an incremental progress. We're not satisfied with 15%, but it's also good to highlight the directional progress that we're making. So appreciate the efforts from all around, from everyone, I should say. Retiree healthcare update, Cassandra mentioned this. I know Trustee Oakham talked about the lifetime maximum benefit. Believe it or not, in 60 days, we're going to be getting renewal meetings for the next cycle effective July 1st of 2026. We have engaged the county over the last few months. We met with the county CEO's office, CEO Santos Kryman, myself in April. We have a letter that we're going to be sending by Friday, essentially asking for the removal or increase of the lifetime max. So we continue to have that as a focused effort, and we will keep the board apprised of that initiative. It's, as Cassandra mentioned, the primary issue was migration to Anthem plans. Even with the effective 1.5 million, we've seen 2. So it's de minimis, this migration issue as it relates to folks flooding the Anthem plans, our PPO plans. And with that, Trustee Chair Robbins, I'll stand for any questions.
Anyone have any
I have a
questions?
question.
Mr. Kehoe?
Regular migration, do we, I'm assuming we have those numbers from before, did we see a couple of people move regardless of the $1.5 million cap on average?
I think regular migration, and Cassandra could hold me to this, is I think we're at less than 2%. And
Okay,
usually that's accounted either someone reached the cap or there's a geographical issue if they moved service areas.
so it's in line when we're talking about 2 people, which is de minimis, but still, that's,
It's even less. It's like
yeah.
half of a quarter of a percent. Yeah, it's
Got it.
Exactly.
perfect. And then updates on the safety election, it's myself and Jason, so.
Oh, is that the-
So you're stuck with the
Okay,
2 of us.
Hot off the press. There you go.
So then they won't have the election, they'll just certify it. 'Cause there's
No, there's
Yeah,
gonna
the
be an
election's
election because
gonna
we
be-
gotta figure out who's
Only
the
2 candidates.
alternate and who's not, yeah.
Okay, got it. Well, thank you for the update.
Does that conclude your report? Thank you very much. We're on item 8, consent agenda, items A through E. I need a motion.
I'll move. Second.
Motion and a second to approve the consent.
Okay. Ms. Ginsburg? Mr. Durazo?
Aye.
Ms. Langton? Ms. Fessler?
Aye.
Mr. Oakham?
Aye.
Mr. Kehoe?
Aye.
Mr. Robbins?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes unanimously.
We have nothing excluded from the consent items. We're now on item,
Disability places, do we do this last? Sorry. The consent calendar. Do we do this first or last? Because it's, oh, wait, let me see.
We go to non-consent.
Here?
Non-consent.
Okay, got it.
you don't have it in there right now.
Here.
Well, yeah, no, you're supposed to do the,
All right,
yeah, you're supposed to do the regular.
item 9. We need a motion to approve from the consent calendar, item 6.
Oh, I have it for you. Right then, you can do that.
Hmm?
We have the numbers if I gave it to you. Here.
Oh, No, I got them right here.
Okay.
I have them.
Okay.
Item 681E through 699E, those are Sheriff's Department.
I'll make a motion.
Okay. Ms. Ginsburg? Mr. Razzo,
Aye.
Ms. Langton, Ms. Fessler,
Aye.
Mr. Oakham, Mr. Kehoe,
Aye.
Mr. Robbins,
Aye.
Mr. Moore.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes unanimously.
Next batch is 1966B through 1908B.
Second.
Okay. Ms. Ginsburg. Mr. Razzo,
Aye.
Ms. Langton, Ms. Fessler,
Aye.
Mr. Oakham, Mr. Kehoe,
Aye.
Mr. Robbins,
Aye.
Mr. Moore.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes unanimously.
The next group are general members, 2950 through 2968.
Okay. Ms. Ginsburg. Mr. Razzo,
Aye.
Ms. Langton, Ms. Fessler,
Aye.
Mr. Oakham, Mr. Kehoe,
Aye.
Mr. Robbins,
Aye.
Mr. Moore.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes unanimously.
The last two are on the consent agenda, general non-service connected disability applications, 4514 and 4515.
Ms. Ginsburg, Mr. Razzo,
Aye.
Ms. Langton, Ms. Fessler,
Aye.
Mr. Oakham, Mr. Kehoe,
Aye.
Mr. Robbins,
Aye.
Mr. Moore.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes unanimously.
We're now on item 10, non-consent items. 10A is the mainframe hosting contract renewal, mainline information systems in partnership with data management. Kathy Delano is here to give us the information that we need to have to.
Yes, good morning,
Yeah.
Chair Robbins and trustees. So non-consent item A is the request to approve the renewal of a contract. It's our contract with our mainframe hosting provider. And it's not a request to approve the vendor who was approved in 2021, nor is it a request for the budget because the funds have been already approved in the budget. It's an approval of the contract because the complete value of the contract exceeds the CEO's signing authority. And so we have a new procurement policy effective last September that requires that we bring these contracts to the board for approval.
Got it. And in 3 years, this will be gone. We won't need to worry about it anymore.
That is the plan. We'll keep you posted.
Perfect.
How much is, excuse me, Sean. go ahead.
I'll make the motion, but go ahead. Tim.
How much has this gone up from last year? Is it roughly the same?
That, I don't know exactly how much. There is a slight increase for inflation,
not
not
drastic.
significant.
Okay.
So I'll make the motion.
That's it.
We have a motion and a second.
Okay. Ms. Ginsburg, Mr. Razzo,
Aye.
Ms. Langton, Mr. Rue, not here, Ms. Fessler,
Aye.
Mr. Oakham,
Aye.
Mr. Kehoe,
Aye.
Mr. Robbins,
Aye.
Mr. Moore.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes unanimously.
Item B,
you.
3-year renewal of the mainframe contract.
So,
Lewis.
Microsoft.
so this again is a request for approval. It's our Microsoft contract, includes our E5 license along with many other products from Microsoft. It's not an approval of the vendor. The vendor was approved in the past. It's not an approval of the budget because it's been included in the budget. We're bringing it to you because it exceeds the signing authority again. This is different in that we're asking for a ratification because we missed this step during the contract renewal process. We had to renew. We had a essential services based on it. And so we're asking that it be ratified.
Yeah, my only request is I think in the future, you could probably build this into the original authority from the board. Because I mean, we can't work without Microsoft, right?
Right.
So I think that's pretty standard. So I think we could save everybody's time by just making it authority delegate to the CEO to be able to, keep these renewals going.
And just a brief comment on this process. Again, it does deviate from our new procurement process. So we want to certainly, that's my accountability in terms of not getting the approval. But we do have processes in place to make sure that we have better lead times on these contract renewals. That's the whole, process we're going through with contracting and our vendor management. So you shouldn't see this moving forward.
I'll make the motion.
Motion and a second.
Okay. Ms. Ginsburg. Mr. Razzo.
Aye.
Ms. Langton. Ms. Fessler.
Aye.
Mr. Oakham. Mr. Kehoe.
Aye.
Mr. Robbins.
Aye.
Mr. Moore.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. Couple of big ticket items. Item C is a routine reinstatement. I need a motion.
I'll make it.
I actually have a question on it.
Sure.
Hello, good morning. So I'm not sure I understood like what the issue was, and I understand that the person's being reinstated, but there's just a form signed by a doctor with no information, basically telling us what the issue was, what the issue is now, how the person has potentially rehabilitated. And I don't know that we can talk about it in public, but I'd just like to know what I'm voting on before I vote on the person coming back and how that works.
Good morning, Ms. Langton. This is a routine process where the members department works with the other carrier and they perform their examination. We're not privy to the member's medical condition or anything like that. We just get the okay and then we present it to your board.
Can I weigh in here? I didn't get the impression that she had been retired for any medical condition. My understanding from reading this is that she just retired routinely, and in order to be able to come back, one of the prerequisites is that you're found to be medically able to perform the job. So I don't think anything was left out here. It's just a step in the routine process to confirm your physical ability to perform the duties that you're being hired for. Is that right?
That's correct.
That's correct.
Okay, that helps a lot. Thank you so much.
Just for the record, over the years, we've had reinstatements of disability retired people and service retired people. So if you retire on a disability and suddenly you get better and you can pass a physical, and I've seen deputy sheriffs and firefighters both do that, although it's rare. I've seen judges retire and then decide they didn't want to be retired anymore and come back. This is a deputy district attorney who I'm sure would rather work for the guy that's there now than the guy that was there before. If I read between the lines, and I have friends that work in the DA's office, and they pretty much confirm that.
Okay, Ms. Ginsburg. Okay, Mr. Razzo.
Aye.
Ms. Langton. Mr. Root.
Staff recommendation.
Yes.
Ms. Fessler.
Aye.
Mr. Oakham. Mr. Kehoe.
Aye.
Mr. Robbins.
Aye.
Mr. Moore.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. We're on item 11, stockholder review.
A little bit. Good morning, Chair Robbins and trustees of the Board of Retirement. My name is Ted Granger. I'm the Chief Financial Officer here at LACERA. With me today is Craig Glide. He's a principal and consulting actuary from Milliman. He's one of our lead pension actuaries. We're here to provide a brief overview of the Star Cola program. This is a request from the Board of Retirement. So this will serve as a little bit of an educational session. So feel free to ask questions and interrupt us during the slideshow. And also there's a lot of slides in the appendix. So if you've looked at those and have questions about those, feel free to ask. So maybe we can move to slide 3, please. Quick overview of the topics. We'll talk about the 2 COLA programs that LACERA offers. These are cost of living adjustment programs for enhancing the retirees' benefit. We'll talk obviously about the Star COLA program. We'll dive into a little bit the Star Reserve that's associated with the Star COLA program. And then again, the appendix has a lot of information there and certainly happy to answer questions, but we won't go over all of those slides. If we could move to slide 5, please. Yeah, okay, great. Okay, so This is a COLA comparison chart. And again, there's two different ways to enhance a retiree's benefit. One is the statutory COLA. That is the April 1st COLA. Both of these methods are allowed by the SERL or the retirement law. The statutory COLA is basically an inflationary COLA. On the right-hand side, we have the STAR COLA. This is a supplemental COLA, and I'll get into more details as we talk through. But the STAR COLA is a supplemental program that's determined by an excess amount of CPI. And again, I'll explain that a little bit further. Couple of points on this slide I'll highlight. One is that the COLA is dependent upon the change in the CPI over the prior year. The STAR COLA, however, is different. It's dependent upon the excess amounts in the COLA accumulation account. So there's two different ways we measure and award these benefits. The COLA, going back to the left-hand side, another point I'll highlight, the COLA has a maximum amount that's built into SERL based upon the plan. It's 3% for Plan A. It's 2% for all other plans. Again, the maximum amount that can be awarded as of April 1. The STAR COLA has a maximum as well. That's the amount, the excess amount that's in the COLA accumulation account. And again, I'll talk a little bit about those accounts in a second, but there is a set maximum as well on the STAR COLA. The one thing that is the same for these two programs is that the Board of Retirement has to approve each one, and we come to the board throughout the year to get those increases approved. So with that, I'll move on unless there's any questions on this slide. So now we're going to dive into the COLA program itself. And I just want to emphasize that the COLA program, we think the goal here is to maintain the value of the retirement benefit consistent with local inflation. So that's really the goal of the COLA program. Oh, I'm sorry. Can we go to slide 6, please? Okay, here we are. So we're diving into COLA. Now we're going to talk a little bit about COLA because it impacts STAR COLA. Again, the goal is to maintain the benefit consistent with inflation. If we look at, for example, example A, we measure the consumer price index 3.4% for the prior year. We know we have a plan maximum for this particular plan of 2%, and we would award that 2% to the retiree. That's their COLA, their statutory COLA, April 1st. And then we contribute that excess amount, that 1.4%, to the COLA accumulation. Again, we'll get to the COLA accumulation in a moment. We prepared example B purposely to also explain how COLA can impact those accumulation balances in the reverse manner. So in example A, we added to the bank, the COLA accumulation, I'll also call it the bank. In example B, we had a consumer price index of 0.5%, but we have a plan maximum of 2.0. In that particular instance, if there's a bank balance that's sufficient, we can pull from the bank and we can credit the member's COLA benefit of 1.5 to get them to the max. So it's the 0.5% increase in their benefit plus the 1.5 from the bank to give them the 2.0. So I just wanted to illustrate how the COLA can add to the bank and it can decrease the bank. We need to set that to understand a little bit more about the STAR COLA.
Can you go over that again?
Sure.
To me, it doesn't, here you're only paying 0.5, but you can pay 2. How come it's a negative rather than a positive?
Excellent question, Trustee Oakham. Thank you for pointing that out. In fact, Craig asked me to make sure that that I explain this. I'm showing from an accountant's perspective the decrease in the COLA bank. To your point, it's an increase in the retiree benefit. So it's a plus to the member. It's a plus 0.5 to their benefit. And then the 1.5 is also a plus to give them the 2.0. So I'm trying to show the math from an accountant's perspective on the negative, but it is in fact a benefit increase of the 2.0. Thank you. Thank you for that question. Appreciate that.
Bobby?
Thank you. I have just a minor question on that same slide.
Yes.
When it says excess CPI from accumulation amount, in this particular instance, example B,
Right.
Does the bank have to have more than 20% or more? Or is this, if the bank has 3%, you can still do the 1.5?
The latter is true.
Okay.
If the bank has more than the 1.5, or if it has the 1.5 or more, we
Okay,
can take that from the bank and give it as part of a COLA.
got it. Okay, thank you.
Yes, and we'll get to the excess amounts in a moment that are related to STAR, but you're starting to get to that point. Okay, so with that, I'm going to go to the next slide. Okay, STAR COLA, little bit different goal here. It's really to maintain the purchasing power of the benefit when it goes below 80% of its original value. I'll jump down maybe to the example here on purchasing power. We try to explain it in sort of two different ways. If you look at the box in the lower left-hand corner, we say that when the retiree retires, their purchasing power is 100%. Over time, those excess amounts that I explained on the COLA side, when the member is not getting the full inflationary adjustment, the member's only getting 2%, but inflation was 3.4. Those excess amounts that go into the accumulation build up over time. When they build up, they can build up to 20% or more. In this case, the bogey is 20%. That's what we're measuring to. In this example, when it's above the 20%, we say, okay, the member's purchasing power was 100% minus the 21.4%, the excess in the bank, that member's purchasing power essentially today is now 78.6. So one way to look at it. Another way to look at it is the 78.6% purchasing power. If we add back that 1.4 from the excess amount from the bank, we take 1.4 and add it back, it restores the member to an 80% purchasing power value. So two different ways to look at that, want to establish that concept. Essentially, the benefit from a STAR perspective is not keeping up with inflation over a period of time, over a series of years.
Do you actually reduce that, his plan by that 1 point? I'm not sure I understand
Yes.
that. You actually reduce it and take it out
Yes.
to make, but he doesn't need that. He's not getting the money.
Yes,
Yeah,
it is a 1.4% increase in the retirement benefit.
Oh, it is.
It is, yes.
So since the purchasing power goes below 80,
Yes.
you make up the difference and add that to his STAR.
Exactly.
I got you.
You're getting it. Yes, exactly. Okay. Okay, and we'll talk a little bit about the math on the next slide. I'll show you the chart. Okay, so I'm going to move over to the right-hand side, and there's a table there. The STAR COLA award example, I think Trustee Oakham was already a little bit ahead of me. We have an accumulation balance of 21.4% over time. That particular retiree has accumulated, that retiree group has accumulated that balance. We can award, again, from an accounting math perspective, we take it out of the bank, the 1.4, we subtract it, we add it to the member's benefit, and that brings us back down to the 20% accumulation balance.
What's the maximum that you could take out of STAR COLA, and also how does it connect with or is it impacted by regular COLA?
Okay, so two parts to the question. I'll take the I think I'll take the second part first. The COLA drives the accumulation balance, essentially, right? So the COLA, excess COLA amounts, any amount they're not getting under COLA go into the bank. When you build up that bank, theoretically, you can exceed the 20%. So it has to get to 20% first, and then we can go above that. Okay, now to try to get to your first question, what's the maximum amount? And you're getting a little bit ahead, but that's fine. It depends on how the board awards the STAR COLA. When we get to the point where we're talking to the board about STAR COLA, we say, okay, here's the accumulation banks, and that's actually on the next slide. Here's the balances that are above 20%. And the board says, yes, we want to award the STAR COLA. In this case, it's 1.4%. And then we say, okay, there's two ways to do it. One is ad hoc and one is permanent, two methods. I'll start with the permanent method. That method reduces the bank. It gives that negative 1.4% from the bank to the plus 1.4% to the member. On a permanent method, we reduce the bank. That's a lifetime benefit. It adds to the member's base. So STAR COLA permanent adds to the base. It's forever, lifetime. If we award the STAR COLA on an ad hoc basis, we don't reduce the bank. The ad hoc is temporary. It's only for 1 year. And the board has to make that decision when we come to the board and ask them how to award it. It's for 1 year and that amount stays in the bank. So to get to Trustee Kehoe's question, the next year we'll come back and we'll look at the banks again. Depending on what happens with COLA, we can add maybe another 1.4% to the bank. So now the bank is at 2.8% above. So to get to your point, long way around, the maximum depends upon the COLA and how the board awards the star COLA. If you do it ad hoc, it stays in the bank. If you add more to the bank that next year, the bank goes up again, and we have to redecide whether it's an ad hoc or whether it's permanent at that next cycle.
But if it's a say 5% inflation and they have a 5% bank, can the board approve the full 5%, or is there a limitation on bringing it to 80% of purchasing power? If my question makes sense. If not, I can rephrase it.
Yeah, I believe that it's the increase can be as much as needed to bring them to 80%. So they have to be below 80% for you to be able, or original purchasing power to be able to bring them back up.
So the 2% limitation for Plan B safety members doesn't apply or doesn't impact the star COLA if they lose 5% purchasing power, if they're at 75% of their purchasing power, and there's 5% in star COLA, we could theoretically award that on a permanent or ad hoc basis.
Right, to bring them back up to the 80.
Perfect.
Yes.
Thank you.
Is that just a mathematical thing? Is that just an accounting thing? Money doesn't change hands, is that correct?
No, it is. It's an actual raise to the retirees' pension. So they're.
But it goes to the star. It doesn't. They aren't receiving. They aren't getting the increase.
They are.
They are.
Yeah.
And what's the max increase? What's the max purchasing power? Someone asked the question. What's the max you can add to their COLA? I mean, not the 3 and not the 2, but the purchasing power.
That's essentially what I was asking. So they can bring. So we as a board can approve to bring it back to 80% purchasing power.
Okay,
So
what's the max you can bring it back?
There's no max.
80%.
Huh?
80%. So you have to look at it from an 80.
Went down to 7.
Then 10%,
And you give them 10%.
You could do 10%?
Yes.
if it ever got.
If we
that
have
way.
the money.
But may I ask a question? What criteria are applied to when you use it as an ad hoc and when you make a decision to make it permanent?
Well, the Milliman does calculate the cost for us. And so there is going to be an ad hoc cost, and then there's going to be a permanent cost. There's a differential between those two, obviously. So the board would have to look at those costs, and also, and we'll talk about it in a moment, we can also take a look at the STAR reserve. That's the money set aside to fund the STAR program. So the board would have to consider the cost of awarding it at that particular point in time, the ad hoc cost, the permanent cost, and how much money we have available for the program.
Okay, so it criteria basically are financial. What can we afford is what the board would be asked to evaluate.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's a discretionary benefit. The STAR COLA is its discretionary benefit for the board, and the board can deny to approve a STAR
Sure.
COLA.
Sure.
As well.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question also. So if you approve it, or if the board approves it to be permanent, I guess if you're at 80% purchasing power, then they wouldn't get an increase that year? Even though it's permanent? Does that make sense?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, it would only be if the bank was, so if you'd lost more than that 20%, so your benefit was below the 80%, that you'd actually get any increase for that year.
Even though it's permanent.
Well, yeah, because but the increase is 0, and so it's effectively 0 permanent. Yeah.
So from a mathematical perspective, we wouldn't see any excess in the bank. We would still be at the 20%, which means the purchasing power is still at the 80%. That's how I would look at it from an accounting perspective.
Ted, if my memory serves me correctly, we've only awarded a supplemental targeted cost of living allowance a couple of times in the last 15 years.
Correct.
I remember two, maybe in the last 20 years is all. Primarily because the majority of the people first impacted are in Plan A. They're getting 3% every year versus everybody else getting 2%. Those people are going to become our problem down the road, more so than the Plan A people. But I think it's important that we remember you still get your COLA every year. This is a supplemental COLA that only kicks in when the buying power of your pension drops below 80%. It's real simple.
Right.
Don't make it more complicated than it is. I let you guys do all the calculation, but when a retiree asks me about what does this mean, I just say when the buying power of your pension drops below 80%, we can implement the Star COLA either temporarily on a 1-year basis or permanently. The last 2 times we did it, we made it permanent because this board was not going to make it a one-time payment. So, but down the road, this is going to be a bigger issue than it is now.
Right.
And to highlight, this is a really important safety net for retirees because this is 20% purchasing power loss after getting their COLA benefits year after year after year. So these are people who have been retired for a long period of time who have lost the equivalent of 20% of purchasing power or more. We're able to bring them up to that. They're not going to get to the point where if they live a exceptionally long time that they're losing 50% of their purchasing power, right? So because of this program, we're going to be able to bring them up.
Correct. Yes.
Rod?
Well, purchasing power, that's on a yearly basis, is that correct? How does the purchasing power work?
We do measure it on an annual basis because we are looking at the regular COLA, the statutory COLA on an annual basis, right? So inflation is measured on an annual basis, which causes us to measure the purchasing power annually as well.
How many times have we offered the Star in the last 10 years where inflation would go down less than 80%?
So to Trustee Robbins' point, right, we were looking at Star COLAs up until about 2009, 2010. Then we had a significant period of low inflation. And then we started offering, inflation did start to rise. And at about 2022, we started offering the Star COLA because that's when the purchasing power, we saw decreases because of the spike in inflation. So about 2022, we started offering the Star COLA. So for the last couple of years, we have offered that based on the calculations, based on CPI.
How are you building the Star COLA collectively, not individually? So we have the money to pay. Where's that money come from?
Great question. And we'll start talking about the Star Reserve in a second. If you don't mind, I'll just give you 1 or 2 more slides. We'll talk about that. That's a great question. Okay, so we'll go 1 more slide, please. Okay, and this goes back to Trustee Robbins' comment. I'm a retiree and I want to know if I'm eligible for a Star COLA. And so the first place you would look would be the Star COLA accumulation accounts. These are posted on our website. They look a little bit different on the website, but it's basically the same thing. I'll just very quickly walk through this table. This particular example is hypothetical. We tried to present a table that was real time, but we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. The board will take a look at this in the fall, in September and October. These are numbers that could be very similar. They are actually the same numbers that we'll present. But again, we don't want to, this is not for approval today. This is just for illustration. In this particular example, we've highlighted a year of retirement in gold. And this represents, if you'll notice at the top, general plans B, C, D, and safety plan B. So members in those plans who retired in this year, 21.4 is their COLA accumulation balance as of April 2021. I'm sorry, 2025. This is in consideration with the last COLA we gave. In other words, this is the actual balance. We gave a CPI was 3.4% back in April, if you'll recall. We added to the bank balance. At that time, it was 20%. Now we're at 21.4, that excess amount. If the board decides in the fall to award a Star COLA, this is where we will take out the 1.4 and it'll be awarded for January 1, 26. We will add the 1.4 to the retirees benefit and that bank balance will be at 20%. So there is a slide in the appendix that sort of describes the cycle, but it's basically a perpetual cycle. We start with the COLA in April, we determine if we can award the Star, and then we go back to the COLA in April, which can reset or change the accumulation balances again for the Star back to the fall. So it's kind of a perpetual cycle. This is a snapshot to make it a little more simple. So any questions on the chart? We're showing the negative to the COLA bank, but it's a positive to the retiree benefit. Okay. So the next slide 10, I provided a little bit of an overview of the Star COLA process. Again, we take a look at the accumulation balances. We have a consult with Milliman. They confirm the balances. They calculate the cost of the two different types of benefits, the ad hoc or permanent. That's in September. We come to the board. Then we come back in October and we say, okay, do you want to approve it? And which method do you want to approve it under? We update the balances, as I've talked about a couple different times, and that would be the January 1st Star COLA. On the next couple slides, I have some steps that sort of where I walk through the math. I think I might skip over those steps unless there's any questions on them. I usually talk about these when we go through the memo. I want to give some time for Craig to talk about the Star Reserve or where to Trustee Okem's point, where the money comes from. So maybe I'll go ahead and hand it over to Craig. And if we could move to slide 13.
Slide 15.
15, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ted.
Sure.
Okay, so as I start into my presentation, I wanted to first just come back and recap the different methods that the board has in order to award Star COLAs. If there are Star COLAs, there's the ad hoc method and there's the permanent method. The big difference between them is on the ad hoc method. If you were to approve an ad hoc award, that would be looking at it and saying that anybody who has an accumulation account that's over 20%, so they've lost more than 20% of purchasing power, you can top up their benefit to that 80% level, but on the ad hoc basis, it would be for a 1 year only increase you'd approve. And so the member would get an increase for 1 year, but unless you took further action in future years, their benefit would revert back to the previous level. And so that would need continual adjustment. So that benefit would not get included in their, what we will call their base benefit. So it would not get any future regular COLAs attached to it. Because it's only a 1 year benefit, we wouldn't reduce the accumulation account for that benefit because their base benefit technically has still lost that amount of purchasing power. We do have a Star Reserve that we'll talk about in a little bit. And so those extra benefits could be paid from that Star Reserve for that 1 year period. On the permanent Star COLA, if you were to award that COLA, we would look at that and say that, okay, that element, that bit of purchasing power, you would approve and the member would get that increase for the current year and all future years. And so you'd make one decision and that now that would get built into the member's benefit, their base benefit going forward. It would be eligible to get the regular COLAs built on that going forward, and you'd never have to make a decision about that piece again. In that case, because we've restored some of their purchasing power, we've taken that money out of the reserve, we'd reduce their accumulation account to reflect that we've topped it back up now to the 80% purchasing power level, so their account would get reset to that 20% level. And that money would move at that point from the Star Reserve over into the valuation assets, because now that amount of money is built into the member's base benefit that they're going to get paid every year. And so the Star Reserve would be lower by that amount, which we'll show in a minute. Next slide, please.
That's one question. If you make this permanent, how are you going to know you're going to be able to put enough money in that reserve to pay for it?
So you're only making it permanent for that, what happened in that 1 year.
It's not permanent forever.
You're not saying that you'll make it permanent for all future excess. It's only for the 1 year at a time.
I think it's important to clarify that. So it is permanent for the member forever. So if we give a 1.5% Star COLA to the member, we approve it, all the members in that year group, will get a 1.5 permanent increase, permanently reduces our star COLA balance.
Correct.
So,
Versus it once, I mean,
and
it only cost you one time.
because it's a one-time
Yeah.
withdrawal from it to make it work in perpetuity.
Yes.
I think it's really important to jump into the star COLA balance though, because that's really the core of where a lot of the questions I think are coming from.
Yes. Okay. So just on this one slide, thank you, Trustee Keough. On this one slide, I'm going to focus here just on the right-hand side of the chart because we're getting to some of the numbers here now. And I'm actually going to start at the bottom and work up. And there's a little bit of history here just on what happened last year. So in the fall last year, when we were here, we had done our calculations. And for the eligible retirees, we determined that to bring the people whose purchasing power had dropped below 80% back up to the 80% level just for 1 year, that would be the ad hoc award. It was going to be about $200,000 in 1 year of annual benefit payments. And so that's the number on the bottom of this chart here. To make that amount permanent for every future year, so that instead of giving them it just for the 1 year, they'd get the equivalent of that 200,000 every future year, that was going to have a cost of $1.6 million. And so the board adopted to make that award permanent. And so that $1.6 million was taken out of the STAR reserve. So at the start of the year, the STAR reserve was about $609 million. The 1.6 million came out. And so as of the end of 2025, the STAR reserve has $607 million available to pay for STAR COLAs.
That money.
So that money, I believe there was an agreement back in the 1990s with the county where that reserve was established. And it was to be made available only to pay for STAR benefits. There were some STAR benefits paid in the early part of the 21st century up to about 2010. Then we had a period of low inflation, so there were no STARs for about 10 years. So the STAR reserve kind of sat there.
So no. So STAR reserve was established one time with a one-time balance. It has not even grown in investment returns. It has sat there at that balance, and we withdraw from it when we do these ad hoc. And I think that's what I'm going to talk about in a little bit, is how we fix this problem. Because if we leave it how it was established and set up, it will eventually hit zero and no longer exist. Well, it is being invested. It's on a balance sheet. It's showing that dollar amount. That money is being invested. That investment's not being attributed to the STAR COLA, which was a mistake, in my opinion, on the establishment of the STAR COLA program at the time. Should have properly identified investment returns so that whatever our assumed actuarial return was for the year should have been applied to that balance year after year. And then we would have actually had significant growth, and we wouldn't be sitting here right now having it go negative. But I'm getting ahead of myself, so I'll let you guys finish your presentation.
I think you could just sit over here and give this presentation for me. So moving on to the next slide, please. So we have done a couple of projections just to show what the impact is on the STAR reserve over time if additional STAR COLAs are granted. We will be coming back in the fall to talk specifically about the 2026 STAR COLA award. But for today, we're trying to estimate how long that STAR reserve can last under different CPI and board decisions about whether it's ad hoc or permanent. How long can that STAR reserve last before it will, and provide those benefits before it will be depleted? So for that purpose, we've got two scenarios here. The first one I'm going to talk about, it's assuming that for 2025 and all future years, that CPI is 2.75%. That is the valuation assumption. So that's going to be our base case. The second scenario, we're then going to assume, what if we have some slightly higher CPI for 2025 through 2027? We're going to assume that at 4% just for those 3 years, and then reverting it to the 2.75% thereafter. And just for a bit of context, in the currently through May 31, 2025, the Los Angeles area CPI, which is what all these calculations are based on, is running at about 2.5%. So obviously on an annualized basis, it's running currently a bit higher than the 4%, but just for some context of where we are currently this year. Next slide, please. So scenario one, we're projecting out here in this chart, the star reserve with those payments over time. We're assuming 2.75% CPI each year. So 2% will be paid through the, for plans B, other than plan A, 2% will be paid through the regular COLA, but there will be that excess of 0.75% each year will add to the people's banks. And that's the bit of purchasing power that they're losing each year. And so the bars here represent the projection of the star COLA reserve if ad hoc COLAs are provided, star COLAs are provided each year. And the line is the projection if the permanent COLAs are provided each year. And so you see at the start, we have $600 million in star reserve. And if you provided ad hoc COLAs to all eligible retirees over time, we're projecting that that reserve is available to pay those benefits through about 2044. And at that point, that reserve would expire. And if you've done those ad hoc COLAs, not only would you not be able to provide future COLAs, but anything that had been granted in the meantime would also go away also, because you'd only been awarding them on a one-year basis. If you award the permanent COLAs over time, that's going to be some bigger transfers out of the star reserve. And so that reserve is going to deplete faster. And so we show that under that basis is going to deplete in about 2040. At that point, you won't be able, you'll have no funds to award future star COLAs, but any star COLAs that have been awarded up through that point, they're locked in. So members will continue receiving anything that's been awarded up through 2040 on the permanent basis. So comparing the two approaches, the ad hoc and the permanent, and the amount of annual benefits that would be provided, people would receive each year, they'll be similar under both methods, while there is a reserve that exists. The big difference happens once the reserve depletes, that members that have, if you've given permanent star COLA awards, that is going to be better in the long term for retirees because that amount of benefit has been provided to them for the future. Moving on to slide 19, please. So this is.
Are we going to be able to contest that money now? Can that be changed? Or we can start having this fund not be depleted by fund 204 and increase itself?
I think that's what Trustee Kehoe is hoping to.
At the end of the presentation, I'm going to address some things. So I think we need to give some direction to staff, and I think we need to get ahead of this, because if we let this go how it is in 2040, future boards and future CEOs here and the county are going to be dealing with a mess. If we get ahead of this right now and we fix some of these things, structural changes. Yeah. I think that's going to be a Steve question, but I think the question is going to be not without cooperation and coordination with the county CEO. That's my guess. So, but I think it's important for you to finish this, and then maybe the board can have a conversation about that.
And I just have 2 slides, and that'll wrap up my prepared remarks. But this is scenario 2, so we're assuming now a slightly higher inflationary environment for the next 3 years, 25 through 27. The narrative here that I just discussed on scenario 1 is the same, but obviously now we've got higher CPI, so that's going to be higher star COLA awards. We're paying out higher benefits, so the reserve will deplete faster. And under this scenario, just with that extra CPI for 3 years, we're projecting it'll deplete about 5 years earlier, 2039 with ad hoc awards and 2035 with permanent awards. So there is a lot of sensitivity here with the actual level of CPI that we experience, because that's what's going to drive it, is what actually happens with inflation, not what any of the assumptions are. And also with the decisions that the board makes with regard to whether to award ad hoc or permanent COLAs. Next slide, please.
May I ask a question? Can we go back to slide 18 for a minute? Thank you. The balance decreases more quickly if the star COLA is made permanent as opposed to temporary, right? Or ad hoc. I'm confused by that because, as I understood it from a few slides earlier, when it is made permanent, we transfer the money out of the star COLA balance and put it into the employer balance or whatever the other account is, right? So it's a one-time movement. If we do it ad hoc, the Star Cola is paid out of the Star Cola account, correct?
Correct.
So it would seem to me that you in the permanent situation, say you do it in 2025, you make a one-time transfer, and then the rest of the years this is left alone. But in the ad hoc, you're pulling out of this every year. I would think this would, if we did it year after year after year as ad hoc, it would deplete this balance more quickly because the increase would be paid exclusively out of this account. Whereas in the other situation, it's only 1 year paid out of here and then the rest of the time paid out of the regular fund. So what's wrong with my
Yeah,
thought
I think
process?
the confusion, I think, is when we say permanent, and this is a very fine point on it, because when we're making the award permanent, it's only with regard to what happened in that 1 year. So we're saying that the ad hoc amount that we give you in 1 year, we're making that amount permanent.
Right.
But then next year, there's a new ad hoc amount, and now we're making that amount permanent as well.
Okay,
And-
so if we make it permanent the first year, then every year after that, the amount necessary to pay off that permanent increase comes out of this account year after year after year?
Well, the amount that's necessary to pay off the piece that you awarded for the first year,
Right,
that's already been taken out.
okay,
I think the simple way to say it is you're either buying an annuity or you're making a one-time one year payment. So at the ad hoc, you're paying the one time and then you got to pay it again every year out of your balance.
right,
Or for the permanent, when we're making it permanent, we're essentially buying the lifetime annuity for all of the people. So it's a higher cost
Okay.
upfront,
okay.
but you don't have to pay for it again.
Gotcha.
Versus the other
So-
time you got to pay every single year after year.
Okay, so if it is a 1.4 or whatever the original amount was in the example, it's not just you transfer 1.4, the dollar equivalent of that 1.4. You have to calculate how much that 1.4 is going to cost over an extended period of
Over
time.
people's lifetime.
Okay,
Yes.
and then that's the amount, you transfer that total amount. Got it. Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Slide 20, please. Okay, so my final slide, just to show a projection of when we talk about the money, but how many people are affected by these Star Cola awards. And so that's what we're looking at here, is just projecting how many people will be eligible. The bars here are showing scenario 1, and the line is showing under scenario 2. So focusing on the bars for now. At the current time, there's about 2,500 retirees are receiving some amount of Star Cola benefits. We project that over the next 10 years or so, under scenario 1, that number will stay fairly consistent, maybe 2,500 to 3,500 people a year. In 2035, you see a large spike there in the number of people becoming eligible. The reason for that is that there is a large number of retirees. Everybody that retired between 2006 and 2018, they all have the same COLA accumulation account balance right now. And so with excess CPI, that 12 years of retirees, they're all going to become eligible for STAR at the same time under this projection, which is in 2035. And so under that basis, we're going to see a big spike in the number of people eligible, and then obviously the number of dollars that are going to be needed to pay the benefits. And so on the earlier slides, you actually saw in 2035, that's when the fund really started depleting much faster. And it says these people all became eligible here. Same thing under scenario 1, these bars, whether it's ad hoc or permanent through 2044, this number of retirees will receive some amount of Star Cola through all those years. For the line under scenario 2, again, that spike is the same group of people, but just now we've had higher CPI, so we get the spike earlier because they've lost their 20% of purchasing power earlier. The pattern is the same. The one difference with scenario 2 is on when you see the line at the right-hand side where it becomes orange instead of blue. The difference out there is that once we hit 2040, under scenario 2, the only retirees that will receive any Star COLA benefits are if the awards were made permanent, because under the ad hoc approach, the reserve will have run out in 2039. And so those retirees under that scenario would not receive any Star COLAs. But if it had been made permanent, they would receive COLAs for everything that had been awarded up through 2035, when that Star Reserve depleted under the permanent approach. And so with that, I'll finish my prepared remarks there and take questions or open up for conversation.
You have a question?
Yes.
Mr. Kehoe.
Thank you. So a very good presentation. Thank you. Thank you very much for this. And I think that this is something we need to, as a board, direct staff to start having conversations with the CEO on resolving this. We got an immediate issue that I think to solve, which is the fact that we have not been calculating investment returns on money that was being invested. So it was making money on the other side of the shop, not within the Star COLA. So I do think that structurally we need to change that. And then 2, we need to discuss with the county on having them. It's really a county decision, but I think that we need to bring this to their attention and encourage them to consider funding this. If we had proper investment returns accounting and we were properly funding this, it would be pennies at the end of the day when you're looking at the bigger budget for the county, and sustainable. Right now, it's completely unsustainable. We know that come, as early as 2030, but 35, I think. But realistically, probably around 2040, it's going to be gone. It's going to be completely depleted. And this is a huge safety net for our members. This is not a rich benefit or anything like that. We're talking about people that lose 20% purchasing power. And if we did some more math scenarios and we said, okay, well, this doesn't exist, what is that population going to look like 15 and 20 years later? They're going to be at 50%, 40% purchasing power when they're in their most vulnerable part of their life, right? So these are things that if we address it now, that it could be done structurally and having the county, properly fund it, we can do it with a much more minimal impact than leaving this to future boards in 2040 and future board of supervisors and future CEOs on both sides having to deal with this and make very tough decisions on what to do and how to handle it. So my recommendation and what I would like to ask for support from the board is to direct our CEO to start having conversations with the county, showing them this information, presenting this information, and providing solutions both structurally to make it so that investment returns are properly accounted for. So our assumed actuarial return should simply be applied to this, and figure out what needs to be properly funded in order to make this sustainable. So how much it would take from the county to do it. Now it's up to the county to decide how they're going to do it. I'm assuming they're probably going to discuss it with labor and talk about possibly offsetting those costs, internally. But if they don't know that there's a problem, that they can't do anything about it now. And we don't want to give them a problem in 2040 by not doing anything about it. So my strong recommendation from our board is to direct staff to take this project on and start having conversations. And I'm assuming that we don't have the unilateral authority to make any of those changes, that is something that has to be done in cooperation with the CEO's office. But Steve, maybe you can provide us some feedback on that.
Yes,
Dave?
thank you. There are 2 ways of funding this. One is the method that has just been discussed, where the funding is obtained from the county as it has been in the past. The second way is that LACERA and the board, within its discretion, can fund this as a discretionary benefit. It is a discretionary benefit. Ted discussed this earlier. And Searle and Pepra allow the board to fund discretionary benefits from excess earnings. which are earnings above the assumed rate plus 1%, plus a 1% of assets contingency. And the funding policy that was adopted by the Board of Investments last October does address this issue. There's a paragraph that talks about, because the funding policy is to talk about how to reach the funding goal and how to allocate funds that are earned. So the funding policy addresses the issue of discretionary benefits, and there's a paragraph that discusses what I'm just stating, which is the funding of discretionary benefits from excess earnings. Excess earnings can only be earned under PEPRA, and this was a change from what Cyril previously provided once our funding goal is met, which is 100% of earnings. So the bottom line is that the way things stand right now, funding the Star Cola from LACERA funds is something that would be down the road a ways.
Okay, so from LACERA fund, we can only do that if we're 100% funded?
And we have excess earnings.
And we have excess earnings. Okay, so realistically, we're gonna rely on county to keep this sustainable. Okay.
Why can't we just, the 600 million, why can't we keep and put it to that fund, the earnings that it receives?
Yeah, why can't we include the investment returns that's
without
at
going to the
600 million?
county?
Whether the Star Cola is reserved as a valuation asset is something that's been considered by the board over time. It's not a valuation asset currently, so it is not. There's no return on that fund of money currently. Whether we could change that is something that I'd want to look into further.
So maybe the best direction would be for staff to come back to the board with recommendations on how to proceed, as far as either a presentation to the county CEO and getting their support in this, or looking at the way that we do our own valuation of that. Because to me, I mean, it's money and it's being invested. So it should have, going back in time, should have been growing. And then we wouldn't even be having this conversation, quite frankly. But maybe that's the best bet, is you come back to our board with recommendation on how to proceed. That way we don't just throw you to the wolves and say, go and solve this problem. You come back with recommendations, and then we can give you a little bit more direction.
Why don't you make that motion and I'll second it.
Let me ask some questions about that same thing.
Absolutely.
What I wanted to know was, how much money did the county fund this program with? When was it funded? And what happened to the cash? Where did the cash go? And was it invested? If it was invested, then we can go back 55 years or however long it was and figure out what that balance would be, minus any obligations that were incurred, and look at making the whole program actuarially sound. That's what we want to do, in summary, in my mind. Just want to make it actuarially sound. So there's money there that the county put into a pot, and there's an entry on a balance sheet or somewhere that says $600 million. And it's been $600 million for the last 50 years, but the cash has been accumulating, and that cash has been included in the fund. The cash is there. Some of it has been used because we've awarded COLAs over the years. So we just haven't accounted for how that money was not only spent, but how much it earned over all this time, and bring ourselves to a current balance. And then we can go forward from there. So maybe there's enough money there to actuarially fund some level for the next 250 years. And maybe we need another $200 million from the current balance to get that done. But I would want to have some data that I've already analyzed and looked at before I went to the county saying we need to do something. I would want to bring them current because the county's already put money in this pot. So what happened to it? I'm a county supervisor. I want to know what happened to it. So let's just do the best we can doing that before we go forward, because we do want to make it actuarially sound going forward.
Ted can give the history better than I can, but there are fiduciary issues here. And so just as with the funding policy, fiduciary council will be involved in the evaluation of this issue. So the paramount duty of the boards collectively is to fund and pay the pension benefits. This is a discretionary benefit. And so there are fiduciary issues. I'm not foreclosing any options by saying that. I'm just simply directing the board's attention to the fact there's going to be there could potentially be some fiduciary tension between how the money that the fund has is
So we
spent.
better find out what happened to the money before we start talking.
So if we go to slide 42, I can give a quick preview. It's the last slide in the deck. We included in the appendix. I did, I think according to mine is slide 42 is at the end. Yep, here we are. Okay, so over on the right-hand side, well, I'll start with the left-hand side. The excess earnings in 1994, the county issued pension obligation bonds to fully fund LACERA. We were at 100% funded at that time. Of course, we had investment earnings that exceeded projections. So then we quickly became sort of overfunded and we had excess earnings again back then in 1994 and a few years thereafter, the late 90s. So we entered into an agreement with the county to divide those excess earnings. 75% went to the employer reserve. That's to pay normal pension benefits. 25% went to the STAR reserve. This is the initial funding, the initial establishment of the STAR reserve back in the late 90s. This is how the money first came in. And we do have an accounting for this. The highest balance was in 1999. It was about 1.023 billion. Through the years in paying all of the STAR benefits that have happened, mostly in the 90s. Then we had a pause due to the high inflation, and now we're paying STAR benefits again. Again, all the money has come out of the STAR reserve to pay STAR benefits on a permanent basis. The board has historically awarded the benefits on a permanent basis. So we've transferred the money out, paid the benefits. Now we're down to 607 million. So kind of in retrospect, county set up the fund. It was at $1 billion. Now we're approximately halfway spent. Might be a good time to talk to the county about it.
What happened to the cash? Was it invested?
Our CIO.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, trustees. The cash, there's no missing cash. The money has always been invested. It's audited. It's part of the review process. However, the earnings stay in a pool of capital, which is the pension trust fund. It's not as if this STAR reserve is invested separately, accounted for separately. Steve made the comment about there being a kind of a separate reserve account. There is no separate reserve pool for purposes of investments or audits. It's more of an accounting and actuarial entry. To the extent this is separated into a new pool, we would probably have to invest it differently because this pool hasn't taken investment risk in terms of down years. It hasn't lost money, so to speak, when the pension has lost money. So presumably if this were to be segregated, you would buy kind of like a bond ladder. You'd buy a series of bonds that would really look to defease this liability over time based upon the actuarial liability. So, but the money's not missing. The money was invested back from the peak of 1.023 billion in 1999, and the earnings on that have been just part of the pool that's for the pension trust fund.
So what is the 607 million? Does it include, it includes all the earnings?
No.
Okay, well, that's the thing I'm concerned about right there. I have no doubt that the money's still there, but.
And Mr. Moore, and once again, this predates me. This is more, the star reserve is more of an accounting and actuarial reserve as opposed to an investment pool and an investment reserve.
But then I would want to make it real and not just an accounting entry.
You could have applied the assumed actual return because it's part of the overall pool. That $1 billion is part of the overall investment pool. So if we made 7% for the year, we could have accounting wise applied a 7% gain on that pool.
And
Yeah,
the
yeah, I
losses
think, that's true. The
Yeah, exactly.
one thing to just keep in mind with that is just to be clear on it is if there had been the investment earnings applied to that star reserve over that period of time, that would have been less assets in the main fund. So the employer contribution rate would have been higher to the county over that period of time as well, because those earnings would now be on the star rather than in the main assets. So it's not a vacuum situation. There's other impact on the other.
So
Well,
pay,
that's what-
pay me now or pay me later,
Yeah.
right? If you're the, if you're the county. Can I ask a question? And this is for Steve, are we able to do a motion today? There's nothing agendized by way of board action. Can we do an actual motion to direct staff, or can we just say it's the sense of the board that we want staff to blah, blah, blah?
You can make a motion to direct staff to
Okay.
proceed with what's been discussed.
Okay, thank you.
So is that your question? Okay, Mr. David, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I concur with Trustee Kehoe, Trustee Moore. I think we do need a little bit more research on this and what our different options are. And as you stated, obviously, if we did this separation, then it would have hopefully a minimal impact on our overall returns, right? And then of course, there's the calculation of then the employer contribution. It's a whole it creates a whole domino effect mess. So if you guys could calculate all of that or figure out to the best of your ability and to give us scenarios, that would be great. But what a ballpark figure, how much would be needed to that curve chart where it goes down to be at a healthy longevity sustainability, right? I know Trustee Moore just threw out like 200 million. Is it 200 million or is it 600 million? I mean, I know you don't want to give us, but what are we really looking at? So when we eventually go to the county and say, hey, can you help fund X? Are we asking for 100 million or are we asking for $1 billion?
So you're right. I don't want to get nailed down on that. Because and a lot of that might depend on just what's going to happen with the investment earnings on it. Because obviously, if it's going to grow with investment earnings, the number's less. But assuming it was to grow, any money coming in was to grow with say the 7% interest crediting, I believe you're in the hundreds of millions of dollar range.
Yeah. And Trustee Kehoe, you're probably going to make your motion differently. When you do, if we can maybe add in to also include the investment team for them to give their advice on how to, assuming all this could be done and we could separate it and going forward and we get the approvals, legal and all approvals that we can accumulate these funds and keep it in STAR, what would that look like?
And that just leads me, I'll go to make a motion to direct staff to return to the board with a deeper dive into a resolution to this issue, which involves things that we can do legally internally, as well as things that we need to bring to the Board of Supervisors for discussion. So that's the motion.
We have motion. We have a second?
Second.
We have motion and a second.
Okay, Ms. Ginsburg? Yes. Mr. Razo? Ms. Langton? Yes. Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. Fessler?
Yes.
Mr. Oakham? Mr. Kehoe?
Yes.
Mr. Robbins?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. I think the only person sitting in this room right now that was here in 1994 was me. And I was here when this whole thing was set up. And at the time that we did it, it was pretty damn slick. And so, but I don't remember all the history and the discussion that went behind it. So you guys are gonna have some research to do to figure out exactly why things were done. I mean, I remember the day where we had all this money that we were trying to figure out how to spend and how we were gonna cut up the pie. So, nothing nefarious, Mr. Moore, I can assure you. And I think we did pretty good work back in the day, but it's time to take another look at this. I asked Ted to do this presentation today. Thank you very much. I figured it was not going to go 20 minutes. It's gone over an hour, but that's okay. It's interesting stuff.
Mr. Chair, can I just comment, on slide 42, where in 1994, they did 75% to employer reserves, contribution credit, and 25 to Star Reserve. I'm sure you, knowing your history, you probably asked for that 25 or increased it or asked for even more, and you probably got hit by everybody.
Cut the best deal you can cut.
Right. You probably got hit because everybody wanted that money for themselves, and you looked into the future. So I want to thank the old our chair here and the board in 1994 for thinking ahead. So we have half the problem now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Items B through F are information only. Item 12 is items for staff review.
Nothing. It was me, Mr. Keyhill's recommendation, but that's the motion now, so we're
Right.
good.
And that'll be an item for a future agenda at some point down the road. Item 14, good of the order. Start with Mr. Holcomb.
The only thing I have heard is the drone show, wonderful festival, worked very, very well.
Okay.
That's a testament.
Elizabeth?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Ms. Ginsburg? Ms. Bankton?
Just want to thank for the STAR presentation. It is quite complex for those of us who are not financially inclined, and I really appreciate the presentation, and I appreciate the chair bringing it to our attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Mr. Rue?
Nothing more.
Mr. Kehoe?
It's summer. Enjoy your summer. Get out there, enjoy the beach.
And Mr. Green?
I have nothing, thank you.
And Mr. Harris? Ms. Bessler?
No, I just want to second Ms. Langston's comments. The presentation was really very valuable. Thank you so much.
Actually, I do have one
Yes.
comment. Sorry about that. And I know he's listening. I want to give a shout out to Santos Kliman for his surgery going well. I know he's recovering well. I know I heard from him. I'm sure he called everybody. So I want to recognize him and his family for this difficult time. And looks like I want to say he's over the hump, right? So great.
And Mr. Raza, any good of the order comments?
No comment today.
Okay. Louis, it's all yours.
Yes.
Well, do you want to go last, Mr. Robbins?
I'm fine.
Yeah, okay.
Again, just want to state, the trustees appreciate the conversation on Star Reserve. I want to echo the comments about safety net, and it goes to the core of our mission when we talk about protecting the promised benefits. So we'll definitely take that internally, and I think to the direction is really looking in-house before we start to engage the county CEO's office. So appreciate the direction there. We have a couple of personnel announcements. So if you bear with me, we have a couple of new faces as it relates to interns and promotions, but if we can have our systems division, then followed by RHC and member services highlight their interns.
So it's my pleasure to introduce the interns for 2025 for the Systems Division. We have 5, and this is our second year running the internship program in systems. Last summer, we were blown away by the energy that the interns brought in. We're still in touch with them. They're finishing their final year. Some of them have moved on to careers, and it's been just a win-win for our division. So the way we structure it is they're given a mentor and a project or 2 to complete over the summer. And then in August, they do a presentation on site to our entire division. So it's a great opportunity, and it gives them 3 things. It gives them that project to talk about to put on their resume. It also gives them at least 3 mentors for their career, which is exceptional. And then it gives them insight to the different positions within systems, because when you're in education and you're learning the theory of IT, the nuances of what a developer does day to day versus an architect versus an administrator are lost, I think. So they get to see what it looks like to work in an IT shop. And so that's great too. So with that, I will let each of them introduce themselves.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Philip Ketterson. I'm a rising senior at San Diego State University, majoring in management information systems. I'm interning here under project management, and my mentor is David Cho. Just want to say thank you to everybody for allowing us to sit in on this meeting and kind of learn how these systems function. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Enzo Grappone. I go to the University of Pittsburgh, but I am from here. I study computer science and I minor in information science, and I'm interning here at the Business Solutions Division and Systems. My manager is Christian. He's been very helpful. Everyone's been super helpful and welcoming, so that's been really great. And yeah, just thank you for this opportunity. This internship is very important to me in my future, so thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Raghav Rapaka. I study business analytics at University of California, Riverside, and I'm under the PMO office under Alonzo. And I do want to thank everybody for the opportunity. It's really eye-opening to see how it actually functions behind the scenes. And again, I want to thank everybody for this opportunity.
Hi, my name is My name is Albert Giro Hines. I am a rising 4th year at the Rochester Institute of Technology in New York. I'm from New York. This is my first time in LA. I came here for this internship. I'm pursuing my bachelor's in computer science and my master's in cybersecurity. As part of the systems division, I am part of the infrastructure team, with my mentors being Alex Yin, Alan Chavez, and Jim Lyle. And just as everyone else said, I would like to thank everyone for the opportunity to be here and learn a lot about how LACERA functions and how LACERA provides essential government functions to its retirees. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. My name is Momoka An. I go to California State University. California State University, Los Angeles. I'm studying computer science. I'm interning in the system division in infrastructure team. My mentor is Alex In and Aaron Chavez. I'm really grateful for this opportunity. This LACERA environment is really amazing for me to learn. Yes, thank you so much. Thank you.
I'll just comment. This is awesome, and I love to see that it's nationwide. I mean, this is exactly what we should be doing, not only to be a player, but also to get our name out there. And I'm really looking forward to seeing some of these interns come back as a full-time employee.
Well, I had to bring me a cheat sheet because I'm still trying to master the pronunciation of my intern's name. This is the first time Retiree Healthcare has had an intern. I am happy to present Servanas Devakaran is her name. She began with us on July 1st. She graduated in 2023 with her bachelor's in business administration, and she's currently pursuing her master's. So,
Hi, good morning. It's very nice to meet you all. My name is Sarvanas Dirakmand. As Cassandra said, I'm getting my master's in information systems at Cal State Long Beach. I just finished my first year, and from this fall, I'm going to for my second and last year. And I'm very thankful for Cassandra and Leilani, my mentors, that are helping me with this internship. And I believe it will be a great experience for me and my resume. And I hope to also help LACERA with my knowledge of things that I'm learning in school. So thank you.
Good morning, Chair Robbins, trustees, Tatiana Bayer, Division Manager for Member Services. For the very first time, I have an intern working for Member Services. Her name is Atia Orti. I'll let her introduce herself. She's going to be working special projects, especially coming to writing procedures, mapping the appeal process for us. So my pleasure to introduce you to Atia Orti.
Hi everyone, this is Atia. I'm pursuing my MBA from UCR. Currently, I'm second year PMBA student. Currently, I'm working with the appeal process for member services. I'm grateful for Stephanie and Tatiana for all their help and guidance. I'm looking forward to learn from amazing people around here and also gain real life work experiences. And also, I'm also looking forward to leave a meaningful impact here and also utilize the things that I'm learning throughout my MBA program. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Robbins. And again, thank you to the managers and the interns. And again, we're looking to expand and formalize annually our internship program. So appreciate all the efforts from hiring managers to HR to the divisions and mentors. So
We actually have 2 hires that we're going to also introduce.
oh, did I miss?
Is Richard here or Christina? Yeah, Christina.
Oh, I missed it. Here we go.
I got your back, Louis.
Yes, you got it. Thank you. Teamwork, right?
Teamwork.
Thank you. In internal audit, we're happy to announce that we're fully staffed. In July 1st, Alex Ochoa joined us from benefits, and I'm going to let him introduce himself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Alex Ochoa. I am new to internal audit. I started there on July 1st. I came from the benefits department over in the process management group. I've been with LACERA for 8 years. I am really looking forward to this new career path that I'm going into. I look forward to working with the LACERA committee and of course these trustees as well in the future. So thank you very much.
We also have the Administrative Services Division.
Good morning, trustees. It's a pleasure to be here. Ricky Contreras, Administrative Services Division Manager. And today it's my pleasure to welcome Jasmine Donoso as our new Administrative Services Analyst 2, who's currently supporting our vendor management and budget teams, although she was hired as a generalist. So we're hoping that she gets to learn a lot about all of the functions of our division, essentially. She has a bachelor's degree from Cal State Fullerton and previously came from Parks and Rec. So we're busy stealing people from the county regularly. If you notice the last person I hired, but I'll let Jasmine say a few words.
Hi, good morning. My name is Jasmine Donoso, and yeah, she's pretty much stated my background. So, I look forward to working with each and every one of you. I am learning a lot, as she said. You know, I'm kind of working between divisions, but it gives me better opportunities to learn the ins and outs of everything, and I look forward to my continuous learning and helping the processes here and whatever you need. Thank you.
Les, I want to comment on the internship program.
Comment.
Okay, so about, I guess this was about 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, I wrote this policy proposal to expand our diversity and inclusion efforts to all the local colleges and universities. And I've talked to Santos about it. And the next year, he increased our intern budget from $75,000 to $300,000. Started this whole effort. I mean, we'd always had internships in the investment division, but we have all these other skilled positions and professional positions in our organization. And since we're a very important local body here in the county of Los Angeles, one of the contributions we could make to our community was providing these opportunities. And so I talked to Santos about that. He bought into it, got the budget in place, and look at where we are now 3 years later. So I give a lot of credit to the fact that we have this program and internships with Santos Kryman and his, push to actually get it done. And so I hope going forward that we maintain the same level of, interest and activism in our community by giving our kids opportunities like this.
Something. Sure. Thanks, sorry. I just want to say thank you that you are having the interns do actual work, because years ago when I was an intern in the DA's office, I was making photocopies, and I think I did one preliminary hearing on the very last day. And sorry, Allison, I'm gonna sell you out on this one, but Allison and I were just talking about when she was an intern, I told her I was making photocopies. She told me she was fixing the photocopy machine at hers. So thank you for letting them do real work. Appreciate it.
And in their resumes, they can say that they worked for an $84 billion public pension fund. Not bad.
86.
Yeah.
86.
I just want to add on there too. Yeah, I was sitting here thinking the same thing, how, we all go through various stages in our lives. Mr. Moore and I were talking about that earlier today, that we don't get any more sand in our hourglass, and ours seems to be running out at an alarming rate. But to sit here and see these interns, and with everything going on in the world, this gives me so much hope. This is so good to see. And I really thank Mr. Moore for his efforts, because I remember when this came up and I was here. And yeah, it's a collective effort, but I think the fact that we've pushed this forward and we're keep bringing interns back and having them do real work, but allow them to be exposed to this incredibly important piece of work. I mean, LACERA is what I've got now. I mean, this is my life, because I have fulfilled my working career. I'm in retirement, and I'm just so blessed to know that I have this to fall back on. And I just really thank this organization for doing what it can and continuing to do what it can and bringing up these interns. And I hope that is relayed to them how much we appreciate everything they're learning here. And go Cal State LA. I'm glad to hear a Cal State LAer in here. So that's good.
Recording stopped.